So this was a bit of video that I made about a year ago actually, when I was just topping up the varnish on the decks for this boat. It's just a fairly quick job over a long weekend to flat back the existing varnish and then just give it about 3 or 4 coats to top it up and give it a bit of a fresh shine for the season. So to begin with, I was just flatting back the original varnish using 180 grit on a DA sander. Just did the corners by hand, just to give it a bit of a key really and kind of flatten out what was there. In between the coats of varnish that I applied here, I was using 320 grit paper, same method with the DA sander, and just finished the edges by hand. Next step was just to go over everything with a tack cloth and remove any of the kind of light dust that's left on the surface, and just pick up all the little bits that are left after sanding, and then kind of revisit any little areas that just needed a bit more work. Next thing was then to go over with some thinners on a rag and just sort of degrease the surface, ready for all the varnish. So the varnish that I'm using is Epifanes. I've used several other varnishes before and just found this one to be works really well, flows out nicely, it's quite forgiving if you need to rework an area and come back to it. So it's really nice, and the gloss and the finish is just amazing on it. So I'm just using a cheap general gloss roller for this. I've used flocked rollers and things like that before, and I just find they leave little bits in the surface. So just a cheap everyday gloss roller seems to work fine for me. So I do quite a small section, roller it first and then brush it out. I definitely recommend using a good quality brush. Afterwards I use a Purdy Monaco Elite. I like to use a 3-inch one just so I can cover a bit more area, and it gives a great finish. It's just no need for spraying or anything like that. I just brush and roller and works fine for me. So I roller a small area and work out the varnish as evenly as I can, and then I'll just go over it with a brush in a single direction, just kind of getting rid of any little air bubbles and bumps and stuff. You can hook out any little bits of dirt that you find in it along the way. And I try and start in one point and then work all the way around from that point, so you don't end up with a dry edge to the varnish. So what I'm actually doing here is working from the front of the boat and then down either side at the same time, brushing towards the wet varnish all the time as well. So just roll it on nice and evenly and get it all spread out, and then just take any marks out with the brush afterwards. So as I said, that's quite a quick varnish job just over a long weekend to top up the varnish a little bit. Ideally it wants about another 10 coats on top of that. What my plan was to let this settle for about 6 months to a year, and then I'll flat it off, do another 10 coats with the same method on top of that, and it should be good to go then. But for now, kind of mid-season top up, that works pretty well. A few shots of the finished thing, so it's got a nice shine to it. Great varnish, easy to apply with a roller and a brush.